This is Wuthering with one of best DPS, and we're going to be stacking it up against one of Wuthering with worst DPS in the entire game, Lingyang, who a lot of people consider to be the worst character in the game. Unfortunately to me, he's my favorite character in the entire game, so I'm forced to play him. But how big of a difference it really is when it comes down to the worst character in the game versus the best character in the game. Now, they're both glacial DPS in the entire game, but the amount of difference between the two of them can really surprise you, and I'm not just talking about the damage. Now, both of these characters is completely maxed out. We got a level 90 Carlotta with her level 90 signature weapon, as well as 3 of her most important skills fully level 10, and all the minor and major skill nodes all unlocked. Now, the same is going to go for our Lingyang. He's a level 90 character with a level 90 limited 5-star weapon. Now, unfortunately, this is not his signature weapon because he doesn't have a signature weapon available in the game. Well, it kind of does, but it's just not very good for him. And immediately we're able to see one of the first difference in the two characters. One of these characters had a dedicated signature weapon that empowered him even further, while the other one does not. Likewise, Lingyang also have 3 of his most important skills level up to level 10, and all the major and minor skill nodes all unlocked. Now let's put these two characters next to each other to see who can complete the tower much faster. Now, of course, you probably know the answers already, and that is Carlotta. I mean, after all, this is the best characters competing against the worst character in the game. But just how much faster it really gonna be? Now, coming into this, you can actually see that I messed up a little bit on the left side. I was a little slow on the shorekeeper rotation, so I ended up rotating into my sub DPS, and finally, of course, my main DPS a little slower. On the right side, on the lingyang, I already started attacking on lingyang, and yet Carlotta just appeared on the field. But as soon as she appeared, you're gonna see that I'm able to just quickly enter my liberation to burst down the enemy. But the damage here, I think, will actually surprise you a lot. Carlotta doing 20k, 80k crit there, 80k crit there, 80k crit there, and finally in the final hitting shot, boom! And then into Echo. But surprisingly, the two of them actually is keeping up side by side next to each other. Very interesting. Now, coming into our shorekeeper rotation again, moving on into our sub DPS, into our DZ on the right. Once again, unfortunately, missed up a little bit on the left. So overall, the left side is relatively slow here, actually. Coming into the lingyang, on the left side, we still don't have Carlotta. And we're probably going to switch into her just in 1 second right here after my ult. Carlotta here. E. Okay, and then I'll burst. Now, you probably can tell the two of them are keeping up DPS much together. However, the Carlotta side is playing significantly worse. As you can see, I'm messing up my shorekeeper rotation. My rotation is significantly slower. Yet Carlotta is still able to upkeep the DPS, and that actually just overtook it in that one burst right there. Back to the shorekeeper. On the right, we already have TZ. So rotation-wise, the lingyang is actually a lot faster. However, damage-wise, Carlotta is significantly ahead. You can actually see that by the second rotation, she's already leading by a good amount, and on the left side, we're about to finish. Now, one thing to be worth noting is that, unfortunately, on both of my Carlotta ults, I actually didn't crit. I ended up hitting 80k instead of like 300,000. It's a significantly chunk miss of damage. Now, I think that is something important to cover, and I'll cover that a little bit later. However, on the left side, we already have finished the boss in about like 3 minutes 30 seconds remaining, while Lingyang is still kind of struggling against the boss right now. To skip ahead of the results, Lingyang actually ended up taking all 3 minutes to defeat the Infernal Rider. A 30 seconds difference in a 2-minute fight is about 25% damage difference, which is a lot. However, some of you might be very clever and immediately notice that the Carlotta gameplay was not that good. She didn't crit, unfortunately, on both of her ults, even with 50% crit rate, and of course, on top of the shorekeeper critical rate buff. In a different run with better gameplay, as well as crit fishing on her ultimate, you can actually see that her ultimate is capable of hitting 300,000 damage, significantly more than the previous clip, and ultimately lead to a faster clear time. I want to use this chance to actually illustrate variance, because Carlotta is built in a way where her ult has a single hit that does majority of the damage. You can actually get away with a build with lower crit rate and higher critical damage to crit fish for a faster clear, since you can just reset until your ultimate crit. On the other hand, the characters like Lingyang, because they are more consistent damage type, this doesn't work, and you have to properly build crit rate and crit damage a little more. That means that Carlotta actually has the potential to get away with worse echo compared to other characters, just because of the way it works. However, with the introduction of the 2.0 patch, Carlotta actually have way better echo than my lingyang. I'm not talking about the stat. The stat on my lingyang echo are honestly like really good. But the thing is that Carlotta has a dedicated 4-cost signature echo that work really well and do maximum damage and automatically come with a bunch of bonus stats that she really like, on top of having a really good set effect. On the other hand, lingyang, I'm stuck with using the good old 4-cost limpy, miry, and bumpy, right? And this echo really sucks. You have to cast free attack to get the buff, and it's very slow. It kind of illustrates that with the old characters, lingyang, you have to get really good at the characters, you have to get really good stat on your echoes, and even then the damage is like really bad. On the newer characters like Carlotta, you can get away with mediocre echo, not play that well, get hit a bunch, but in the end you still have a very easy time clearing. Now, one of the things you will notice that I'm actually using the same team in both cases. Carlotta, ZZ, and then Shorekeepers. In both cases, ZZ is a really good support for both of these characters since she's a glacial buffer, and both lingyang as well as Carlotta do glacial damage. The biggest difference is that ZZ only buff resonant skills damage, where lingyang kind of split between resonant skills damage and basic attack damage. This is, I feel like, is one of the second biggest difference for newer characters versus older characters. New shiny characters have dedicated support. These characters are specifically designed to work really well with these characters, and while you could still use it with the old and bad characters, they're just not as good. Now, however, of course, there are other bosses in the game as well. Fallacy of No Return Hologram is what people consider to be the hardest boss in the entire game, and it actually takes an immense amount of skills. Now, how does lingyang compete in a difficult environment like this versus the new characters like Carlotta? And if you're still curious, subscribe. With a character like lingyang, I feel like I have to play like very perfect. His kit doesn't really allow survivability, it doesn't really have built-in survivability in any way, and I have to basically like dance around the boss, constantly paying extra massive attention in order to not get hit. On the other hand, on the characters like Carlotta, it really feels like this is not fair at all. For one, whenever you come in and cast your skills, you can actually freeze the boss. And when they're frozen, they can't attack you, which makes it very easy to avoid their attack. Additionally, because she is ranged, you actually are able to kite out the boss in a distance, and on top of her mobility, make this boss very easy to dodge in comparison to a close-up melee characters like Lee. Switching back into our lingyang POV, you can actually see that lingyang is actually doing really good damage, very similar competing to Carlotta. However, the big problem is that you have to consistently hit the boss to get that damage, and once the boss starts doing some bullshit pattern that doesn't let you hit him, you lose all your damage just like that, because you're no longer able to upkeep your DPS and your rotation got wasted. On the other hand, for characters like Carlotta, because all your damage is bundled into your burst, it is significantly easier to get all your damage out at once. If you stagger their boss, you can guarantee to get your damage out very quickly in comparison. And putting these two side by side again, once again you can really see the damage difference between these two characters, just because one of them is able to hit much more massively, much more consistently regardless of what the boss is doing because it's a burst type characters, while the other one really struggle. In the end, we were able to beat this very easily, very casually on Carlotta. It was pretty straightforward. However, moving back to lingyang, one of the things you will notice is that we're starting to kick into the bottom 2-minute timer. If you didn't know, this boss has a specific... If you don't beat this boss in 3 minutes, he'll actually start to decrease your HP by 10% every 2 seconds, which means that it is very easy for you to die. And so yeah, while it is doable on a bad characters like lingyang, it really feels like you're fighting for your life much harder because you just do less damage and you're not able to complete the boss before this debuff kick in. And if you think you can solve this problem by, getting more duplicate of the characters, getting more sequence, well, pleased to tell you, lingyang sequence is complete garbage. His sequence 2 give you like 10% resonance energy whenever you do intro, which is like absolutely nothing. Right? Sequence 3 give you like 20 basic attack damage. On the other hand, Carlotta's sequence 2 multiply your damage on your liberation by 1.6%, and not to mention how insanely broken your sequence 6 will be, where it just give you like unlimited freeze, give you like double damage, give you everything like bam, hit one shot the boss. And even if you get to all the way to lingyang sequence 6, it just buff his basic attack damage bonus by 100% for the next basic attack every time you do his skills. At least he's killed, I guess, so Let me know what you think the difference is between the best characters and the worst characters in the Wedding Wave. And as always, subscribe, comment. Oh my god, it broke. Okay, subscribe please. Bye.